Here.
Ms. Collins?
Here.
Ms. Guido?
Here.
Dr. Colbert? Here. Ms. Jordan?
Here.
Ms. Lau?
Here.
Mr. Michael?
Here.
Mr. Shaughnessy?
Will be made.
Ms. Sherry?
Here. Please rise for pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. I would like to offer a moment of silence in memory of John Kane and your fellow Americans. Please be seated. I will entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purposes of collective bargaining under the utility law, NASPA, matters leading to employment of particular individual or individuals, and employment history of particular individuals or corporations. So moved. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we shall return to closed session as close to 7 p.m. as possible. Now, the consult public session to order. We have 3 resolutions coming out of executive session. I shall read them. Oh, sorry, everybody go green. I'll say that again. We have 3 resolutions coming out of executive session. The first, DOE 19, be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, Dr. Paul J. Catalino, that the board hereby creates the following position, administrative position, 1 full-time assistant principal. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? And the second is P24. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of Dr. Paul J. Catalino, Superintendent of Schools, and the board hereby appoints Aaron Nelson to a 4-year probationary term as J. Watson Bailey Middle School Assistant Principal in the Assistant Principal tenure area, effective September 5th, 2018, and terminating on September 4th, 2022, at an annual salary of $98,000, initial SBL certification. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Oh, second part? I apologize. Be it further resolved upon the recommendation of Dr. Paul J. Catalino, same resolution, that board approves a leave of absence from the position of middle school science teacher effective September 1, 2018 to June 30th, 2019. Okay, so I'll take a,
So moved.
thank you.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm delighted that Mrs. Nelson has accepted this position, and I think she's going to be a real asset. Thank
Anybody else? Absolutely. Well, we can vote. Vote and then?
Go, you can vote.
Okay. I concur. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? No.
All right, just quickly. Just want to first of all welcome and congratulate Ms. Nelson. Obviously, she's not new to us, but she's new to our administrative team. We're very excited. She's done a lot of different things administratively, worked for us, and really has shown us that she is the right person for this position, and we're excited to have her. So congratulations and welcome.
Okay, and P25, again, professional personnel. Be it resolved that the board hereby assigns Ryan Nacarado, a teacher in the physical education tenure area, to the position of instructional support services provider, ISSP, assigned to Miller Middle School for the first semester of the 2018-2019 school year, a position within his current tenure area of employment to perform services as described by the superintendent of schools, Dr. Paul J. Catalino, effective September 1st, 2018. I'll entertain a motion. Okay, any discussion?
get at some point maybe just a job description of that?
Yes?
That would be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
And then we have.
Any other questions? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much. And that brings us to the first opportunity for public participation. This evening, if there's anyone who would like to address the board, anyone who's signed up on the podium, you may approach the microphone. You're limited to 2 minutes. The policy governing public comment at board meetings is attached to the podium, but if you go into any area that we really don't discuss in public meeting, I'll let you know. So anyone who would like to address the board, please step forward to the microphone and identify yourself. Okay, hearing no takers, and then we'll go on to the approval of minutes of August 1st, 2018. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Are there any amendments or corrections to minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Thank you very much. And with that, we'll move into the superintendent's report, and I give you Dr. Catalino.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. First, on the superintendent's report, we were going to have our Second Century and Mahar report, and our Director of Buildings and Grounds, Mr. Tom Clapper, is here.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy and proud to say tomorrow is a ribbon cutting for a project that's 99.9% complete as far as first phase. We've just been putting the finishing touches on it. There's a few pictures of guys putting plates on light switches and mopping floors, but we are just done and ready for school up there. The front piece is done. I've shown this picture a few times. The only thing that was added was this strip right across here for a new piece of roofing, but it's 100% complete. All the lighting's done, all the panels are done. Ichiha, you gotta say it one more time. And every day we'll say it again. All the parking lot was striped, and as of Thursday night, the guy came in and put arrows. All the traffic is moving from Andrews Street to O'Reilly Street. Everything is one direction on the campus. One thing that's going to take a little bit more time, because imagine this, we hit rock. There's a bunch of signs for parking, assistant principals, athletic directors, folks from Crown Street. So and all those signs have to be put in, and as we were digging, we hit rock like immediately. So it's taking us a little bit more time. And that's what those folks are doing right there. They're putting them in, and we're actually having to set them in concrete because there's just not enough time, not enough depth to hold the poles. That's the front entry right there, clean and ready to go. This was about 10 o'clock this morning. Principal Reinhardt was in his office. Security office was open. There were some students in the building, but yesterday was the 9th grade walk through. There was 400 kids in the building, and there was a lot of positive reaction. This is the 3rd floor on the west wing. Just ready for school. My guys up there. I have to thank all my workers up at the high school, the cleaners and the custodian John Boyle. They did a terrific job. Every floor in the place looks like that. Every space is ready to go. John Kaczynski, like I said, just put some finishing touches on the electric. That's right off the library. Librarians have a little bit of work putting books on the shelves, but I'm going to say they're about 70% done right now. And that's what's happening at the high school. The report's kind of short because it's done. Mahar project, got to go to bathrooms first, I'm a plumber. They're ripping things out and they're getting prepared to do the abatement of all the hazardous materials. Some of it is just lead paint, and so what they do is they scrape it onto the plastic, it gets wrapped up, and they dispose of it that way. They're doing the demo that they can do before the abatement. Abatement is going to start on September 9th and run for about a month. But they've been taking down boards and paneling and whatnot in the building. And on our end, we have the generator installed. We have to get it fired up, but it's probably a day or two away from being operational. The oil tank is gone. The back rooms are just about done. We had a lot of work this summer just to get the other schools open. So we put Mahar on the back burner, and we're going to get back in there probably in October and finish up all the floors. The work that we're doing there. Just another picture of that generator. And that's about it. And all the schools are ready to go. Again, I really want to thank my cleaning staff. They did a terrific job this year. And my maintenance staff, they accomplished great things this summer. We had to split 3 or 4 rooms. 2 weeks before school, Bailey called and said that they needed an office for someone. Can you imagine? And so we had to do a room for security. A wall went up, electric got done. I will do a full report on it, but there was a ton of work that got done, and it's all complete. And I'm very proud of all of my guys.
Any questions for Mr. Lovett? I have to say that your staff deserves kudos every year. And it goes from chaos through there the other day to wow. So,
It's amazing. It's quite a metamorphosis. If you look at July 4th and you look today, the difference in the schools are unbelievable.
thank you very much.
We had our administrative retreat, our end of the summer, beginning of the year administrative retreat at the high school Monday. And one of the things that we learned, speaking to one of our colleagues from BOCES had their summer school in Kingston High School, and she had told us that this was the first time that they can remember, maybe ever, they did not have one suspension from summer school. And she attributes it very much to the environment. The new building, the new technology, the air conditioning, all those kind of things that the students really were comfortable and they are doing what they needed to do. But the building was phenomenal, and Tom's guys have done a fantastic job getting everything ready. But I think that I really will talk more about this tomorrow, so I guess I shouldn't give my whole speech now. But the faculty, staff, and Mr. Reinhardt and his team putting up with so much that they have over the last couple of years, and they're deserving the rooms that they kind of waited for. I popped my head into a couple of rooms where teachers were working, and they were very pleased, and bright and great views, and it's a really nice building. But wear your sunglasses if it's sunny tomorrow, because when you walk into that main entrance, it's really bright right there, isn't it?
Very bright.
It's really
That
bright.
concrete really reflects. Very bright.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the superintendent's report is superintendent. As you can tell, Kate is still on maternity leave, so you're getting some just kind of canned PowerPoint presentations, not the nice stuff. So now I guess the cat's out of the bag. I don't do my own background in my PowerPoints. So you'll get used to this for a little while until Kate comes back. Just quick reporting out on our goals. I gave draft goals to the board at our last meeting, and the goals are on the consent agenda for the board's consideration this evening for approval. Just quick background, goals specifically aligned with the DTSDE goals set up by the Teaching and Learning Department and for the Board of Education requests from several of your conversations and that communication from Mrs. Shearer to myself on what was important to the board and the things you really wanted to see this year and have us show you this year. So the first goal is always the same. It's been the same for the last several years, and that's to monitor and support the goals of the District Comprehensive Improvement Plan and submit quarterly reports to the Board of Education. Dates are all provided on the annotated calendar, actually for all of the goals on the annotated calendar, and they'll be in this goal presentation. But this is what we do. This is the new versions of our goals are already placed up on our wall here, so everyone can see what we're doing and what we're working on, and we will. My job really is to is to support Mr. Bird's teaching and learning team and monitor their goals and report back to you. And they've already jumped into it and are rolling before school even started. That's the annotated calendar. Just so you remember, we have an annotated. That is not what it looks like, Mr. Schoenstein. We wouldn't like that. that is not what it looks like in your that you have. But that was the best I could do when I could get it onto a PowerPoint presentation for now. But just a reminder, all the dates that for our presentations, whether it be on the goals, whether it be myself or one of our teaching and learning team presenting, are all on our annotated calendar. I know last year we had a couple of flips where we had to change some of the goal dates. I tried to be very specific with what I'm going to do, when I'm going to do it, and when it's going to be in your hands. We feel strongly this year, after meeting with the teaching and learning team, that we can meet these dates. With a few flips in the radar last year, but this year we think we're right on it. Quarterly reports on short and long-term suspensions. This is a carryover from last year. Little change is last year we were giving an overall piece of information. This year we're going to desegregate it by subgroup, and I'll provide the board with a summary of all of our restorative justice professional development, and as well as the practices and the data related to the use of these practices. And again, that's going to relate right back to the suspensions, right? So we'll say we're hoping that the use of these practices is going to reduce the suspensions. So that will be quarterly reports to the board, and it's a goal from last year, but I'd say it's enhanced to be a little more specific and a little more informative to you as board members. Goal number 3, by August 29th, the superintendent will present the board with a report on faculty and staff diversity, which actually you have in your packets tonight. Goal number 4, by November 14th, the superintendent will present the board with a report on anti-bullying efforts in the city school districts, past and future. So there are some things we haven't talked about this, and one of the things that really brought this to the front of our minds was our PTSD survey. And we saw that one of the things that was across the board in every building, students, parents, all came back and said, there's bullying going on. What are you going to do about it? And that's what we're working on now. So there's some things we've done in the past and things we're building on. So I'm going to report out to the board in November on where we are. And actually, we'll talk again in June when we review the overall goals about where we are then as well. I know each of our building principals has placed this in their set plan as one of the things that they are focusing on, especially at the middle school level, with several of our board members and teaching learning committee saw those presentations. By the 28th of November, I'll present to the board information regarding our grant funded programs currently operating in the district. Another thing that we don't talk a lot about, grants that we have and what we use them for. The big grant that we talked about the last couple of years has been our community engagement grant, or the My Brother's Keeper grant that we have, which is a very big grant. So we've given you little bits and pieces of parts of those grants, but we've never really given you a report on what we're doing with all those funds and how we're measuring whether or not that's helping our students and where we'll go from there with each of them. So that is something that will come out right at the end of November. For some reason, this one got out of chronological order, but September 12th, in conjunction with the Teaching and Learning Department, will provide a report on the newly implemented mental health curriculum. As you all know, the State Education Department has mandated that we include mental health in our curriculum at the schools. So we have implemented that, and Mr. Verge and Mr. Silverstein will be here on the 12th to give us a little background on what we're doing and how we're moving forward in the implementation of that. Now, we've been doing a lot with social emotional wellness and social emotional health. We've been doing a lot with mental health, but it hasn't necessarily been in the curriculum every day for all students all the time. It's been a lot of different things, but not this embedded program that we have in place now. Goal number 7, we're going to provide the board with an overview of the APPR process. Again, something that we do and we don't think much about. It's just what we do. It's what we do every day. And we don't necessarily talk very much with the board, except for when it comes to that one night a year where we grant tenure. And that's when obviously these people have done well on their APPR. But I think giving you a better idea of what the APPR looks like, what our procedures are, what our deadlines and how we monitor it, and also maybe give you a little aggregate data. Again, I'm not allowed to give specific data on individuals, but aggregate data on how as a district we do this. We do have a highly sophisticated system behind this, and really through Staff Tracker, we can find out so much information about what's going on in our classrooms, what the observations are telling us are going on in our classrooms, and I'll be reporting that out to the board in April. And I chose April because April is the time where we make tenure recommendations. So I will also report out to the board how many teachers are up for tenure, how many people may be denying tenure, any improvement plans that are out there that are based on APPR results, and let the board know where we are, again, with the professional development support of our teaching staff. On April 24th, Teaching Link, along with myself, will provide our annual summer report, something we do every year, and as well as the Fed's data. This is one of the things that's coming down the road. Tom just showed us the coordinator of city construction, the Mahar building, and complete the plan for implementation of the district-funded pre-K program. We had a presentation by Dr. Felicello back last year about what we're looking at doing, but now we got to do it. So this is going to be the real implementation. Show you. Here's what's going to happen in September when you go over there for that ribbon cutting, when our students, our 4-year-olds, come walking in those classrooms, and we start our district-funded pre-K program. And I use those words very specifically. This is not the UPK program that's funded by the city. This is the district-funded pre-K program that we will be putting in place and we will be coordinating and overseeing. So this is a big goal. You know, it really is, because there's a lot intertwined in there. There's the construction, there's the recruitment of the students, there's the recruitment of the teachers, there's getting the curriculum aligned and in place and having our aligned and in place and having our then the actual arrival of students. So we'll be presenting that to you at the end of the year to let you know exactly where we are. And that's the conclusion. Any questions?
Questions? Dr. Collins.
So this is a lot, but there's a lot of work to do, and we have a lot of great plans, so I appreciate that how this is incorporated in. And not to add to your list, but I know that we are thinking
Where's the bar?
and I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but we're talking about restructuring district administration, and I was hoping that kind of toward the end of the year, we could get some kind of report, like reflections on that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really a necessity, and that's going to have to happen.
No, I know, so
Yeah.
I don't know if that goes in the goals or if that's part of number one, but and maybe it needs explicit statement somewhere on that 10th goal, but I think, you know, as we report on achievement, obviously we kind of want to report on that.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. And
Thank you.
thank you for incorporating suggestions that were forwarded.
Thank you for making it. It did help the process.
Oh,
The goal making
Dr.
process.
Chikova.
I just have one more comment, that I think you need disaggregated data.
Yes, not
Number
disaggregated.
two, and not
That happened to me twice. I think I sent this just to people to get edited. Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the superintendent's report will be our coding presentation, and Ms. Vaudeville is going to introduce some of our people.
Good evening, everyone. To begin, I'd like to introduce a couple of familiar faces to all of you. We have Mr. Stevie Kraft from Ulster BOCES Model Schools, and he is, of course, our partner. And Dr. Alyssa Oliveto, our Assistant Director for MSD, so we will be kind of tag teaming to make the presentation this evening. Coding is an essential ability for our 21st century learners, and at its most basic, coding is learning how to code is learning how to tell machines what to do. And in a few minutes, Stevie is going to be demoing that very thing with a couple of toys that I noticed that all of you noticed as you were walking in today. Skills such as user interface design are in high demand, as well as the profession of cybersecurity. As a matter of fact, up by where I live at College of St. Rose, they just instituted a new major on cybersecurity. The skill, or really the language of coding, helps to build logic, stamina, persistence, and early literacy development. And Dr. Oliveto will speak a little further on the elementary portion of what we're doing with coding and how that occurs, focusing on the skills of sequencing and language acquisition, as well as other soft skills that we will discuss in a few minutes. And in tonight's presentation, you will see how coding currently works with our core curriculum, and as well as where we're headed in grades K through 12 in the Kingston City School District. So this is our coding goal. This goal spans grades K through 12, and of course it is to increase, just go back, other way, to increase coding and its connection to all of our content areas through cross-curricular projects. So again, coding is indeed cross-curricular, which we'll be expanding on in a few minutes. And one of the important things to remember is coding, oftentimes people think of coding as a subject area or a content area. And really it's a skill set, it's a language, if you will, that provides students with training to meet those demands of being those 21st century learners. Reinforcing soft skills, growth mindset is something that we've heard about a lot from our teachers and from some of our principals in their presentations. Certainly reinforces that, as well as, like I said, resilience, persistence, stamina, and communication. So I'm going to hand this over to Dr. Oliveto. Before I do, I just want to let everyone know that we very purposefully backward designed this presentation. So we're kind of starting with the end in mind with the high school, working our way back through middle school, and then landing at our elementary level.
Good evening. Tonight we're just going to give you an overview of where we are at currently with coding, as well as where we're projecting on moving forward. So where are we? At Kingston High School, we currently have 3 courses. The first course, Computer Science, course number 1, is a semester-long course, and that covers really the basic foundational skills needed to understand and start developing code. And in this course, we're using a program called Snap. And in Snap, they use a language called block coding. And block coding is actually a pre-designed blocks that kind of drag and drop together, and students then move those blocks accordingly depending on what the result that they want their program to end up as. They move into, in the second semester, they move into the computer science course number 2, which is definitely a more rigorous type course, and it is in depth. It is then moving from that foundational skills of block coding into actually writing the actual code. And the language that they are learning, which is a very well-known coding language, is called Python. So both of these courses are actually prerequisites for our AP computer science course at the high school. So at the middle school level, in grade 5 and 6, we are currently using our VEX robots quite often, and that is actually right embedded into our curriculum. We're going to speak a little bit more on a specific activity that we did that some of you actually attended in just a minute. In our 5th grade business course last year, they really laid the foundation of what coding is to our students and what kind of maybe careers are incorporated when you learn code. You know, what could you do with it? They also learned that block code that is necessary, those foundational skills, and they began actually building a video game using this block code. And in 8th grade, in the technology courses, they are also using these codable VEX robots. So we're just going to take a moment to go through some of the, I think, are very highlighted, some projects that Stevie and I have worked on with our teachers, and I'm going to hand that over to Steve.
So the project that I'm going to talk to you a little bit about here is our drone project. What we have is our students, we wanted to show them how they can utilize coding, how we use coding in the real world. They were tasked with taking some images and data that we received from our drone right here, my Mavic. We went around Kingston and we used that information alongside their mapping skills that they were already learning in their social studies courses and also in their math courses. They had to figure out, where did the drone go down? So the students took that real-time data that was coming in from the drone, that they were able to then process that through using the mathematics and their coding, They were able to determine not only where the drone landed or crash landed, which it didn't, because it's expensive to crash that. But they were able to locate that, and then they were actually able to build this project out to even deeper levels. So they were talking about how do we hire a drone company. The questions that came out of the kids were also awesome as well. What can I get paid to do something like this? How do I get into a career like this? And these are your 5th, 6th, 7th graders that are really engaged in that way.
So some of you attended our STEM days that we had out in Miller in April, and then that was followed up in June at Valley. So our STEM days consisted of particularly our grade 5 and 6 students, and they moved from classroom to classroom with an activity that was different in each classroom. And when we designed this, Stevie and I sat with the teachers, and they really came up with some amazing lessons for our students to become very engaged with our robots. And all of the lessons that they were doing were revolved around math and science, and we were actually using it also as a review for the math test that was coming up. So what we didn't realize, though, and talk about a teachable moment that occurred, when we designed this with the teachers, it was based on embedding this robot to assist in engagement in learning, figuring out perimeter and area using a robot. So I'm going to hand this over to Stevie because he saw the aha moment and took charge.
So, as was said, we were looking at our robots, and the kids, the idea was that they had to map this little zone, find out the surface area. And as we were doing this, one of the students recognized, he said, well, why aren't we letting the robot do this? Can it do this by itself? Why are we controlling it? And we took the data that they had written, the math work that they had done, they were really writing pseudocode for me. And we said, well, let's take what you've already done. You know by rotation how far the robot has gone, right? They said, yeah. How can we take this and plug it into the robot's brain? So they gathered around the computer, we all got together, we sat down there, and they started plugging in their codes. And you should have seen how these kids were fighting over trying to get just the right amount of degrees, and how far should it go left, and how far should it go right. And they were so engaged with the process, and then we were able to turn it around and say, well, now, what if we had to make it go autonomous for a multiple period? Let's say it had to do this perimeter over the building to check the security every night at a certain time, a certain amount of times. They were able to jump right in and change the code out. The one thing was trying to get them out of the room after the process was done. So we look forward to adding that in and working on that more next year, or this year. Oh, yeah. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and show you. So, one of the shapes that the students had to use was a simple square. And the students found that the robot was making one rotation of the wheel, so they put tape on the wheel itself in order to measure out the rotations. They found that each rotation of the wheel was 8 inches. So when they were done, they were able to, this is one of the basic shapes that they did, run a program. Speaking of persistence, battery died. They were able to run up this program. That's why you always have spares. Now these robots can be built in any way, shape, or form. So this is just another version of the same robot. Steal your battery. And the fun thing is, one of the things that I tell the students and the teachers as well is that when the students are working with these things and they come up with a problem like that, that whole idea of those soft skills, what do we do? It didn't work. Oh, well, maybe we can go back and troubleshoot a little bit. And those skills are so needed in this field. So here's the robot, one of the codes the students wrote to drive their box. Now, as you can tell, the robot isn't fully doing the right box that it's supposed to. It kind of gypsed it a little bit, and that tied into the things that we talked about with friction. And the students like, wait, so on one surface on the carpet, it does a different rotation than on the tile? Yeah. So we have to now come back and look at what numbers we need to plug in to fix that. And they went through it. They had a blast doing it, by the way. So that's just one of the robots. I'll send these around so you guys can take a look at them. utilize those things.
And that actually really tied in directly to our new NISLA standards, where students were driving questions and learning through their own questions and researching them.
Now, you may remember this question. What you're seeing here is Google VR tours that we've been doing. Now, as you notice, there's some students in the back of the classroom. They were currently learning about the mitochondria and these things. Now, one of the things that we've been implementing is in BrainPop, the other half of the kids are able to go onto BrainPop and work on activities that tie into what they were doing. One of those activities is a coding activity, so they can actually develop and build out code in BrainPop that matches and marries to what they were learning in the classroom as well. So we're just looking at different ways, instead of it just being, like this right here is actually our social studies class, and they were doing the same thing with the pyramids in Egypt and learning about ancient civilizations, and they were using coding in that class as well. So what we wanted to do is really open up the doors to coding and see and show our students that it's not just a thing that you do, but it's the way that we do things. So they were really, really engaged and loved it.
Okay, so where do we go from here? So we are planning on continuing in Technology 8 by using these codable VEX robots. We are also reviewing some new software to be implemented called Code Combat, which actually is it actually builds rigor as the students become more proficient in their basics of coding. This year we're also going to be using code.org extensively, actually all the way K through 8, and Steve's going to let us in on a little bit of that.
So with code.org, you guys have probably heard of the Hour of Code. Code.org is, the Hour of Code is just a unit inside code.org. And the cool thing about this is that we're able to, from kindergarten all the way through, like was mentioned, all the way through our higher grades, students get the opportunity to work in the software to build those coding skills. So they start off with simple block-based coding, and it's all built out for them, and they work their way up to more intense actual machine code, which is awesome. And it's all right there in one space.
In the 5th grade business course, this year is going to actually be very exciting and very full of curriculum. First, they're going to start off with some keyboarding, some developing those skills, as well as learning more in-depth skills in our Microsoft suite, so Word, Excel, as well as code.org. So in this, I've also designed an assessment, a summative assessment, and this is the very exciting part. Once they've gone through this code.org, they should be able to have the skills enough to do very well on this summative assessment. Now you're probably thinking, oh, another test, right? No, an assessment doesn't have to be a test. So what we're going to be doing is students are going to be coding a drone, and they're going to be actually creating the flight path for a code, or for the drone. They may have to order helmets, but they are actually pliable, and we actually have one here that we're going to demonstrate.
By the way, that's Alyssa trying to take me out with
Yes.
the drone.
That was me trying to drive. Fly.
So our code drones here, so with the same principles that they're learning with the land-based robots, they're also learning with these aerial bots as well. And we've heard a lot about drone technology and how it's reshaping the way that we do everything from engineering to, landscaping. And these little guys are fully controllable, but the other cool thing about them is that they're fully programmable as well. So once the students get to a certain point, I'm a certified drone pilot, and I keep saying this. Once they get to a certain point, they'll take all those skills that they've learned and plug them right into these drones and have them fly and do their own patterns from there. And not only can they code using the block-based coding, but this also has an Arduino board built in, so they can use Arduino coding as well. So again, scalable in such a little product.
Unfortunately, we did not budget for the helmets. When they're flying those things around, we'll have to figure that out.
Before I move into the elementary portion of this, I do want to just take a moment to recognize Stevie Kraft because he is an amazing asset to Kingston City Schools. He really works very hard every day with our students and our teachers and me. That's a full-time job in itself. So I really enjoy working with Stevie. I have definitely gained a colleague, but definitely also a friend. So thank you for everything you've done. So grade 3 and 4 are going to be using these Ozobots. Now these Ozobots are small programmable robots that are going to be used to, in addition, to engage students in math, science, but also art and literature. So how this works is there's an art form that the student either projects or they have pre-made ones, and then they actually use a colored code to be able to code the Ozobot to actually follow the pre-design. And our instructional coach, Mike Searcy, has actually been working with many of our teachers last year and using this program. And a few examples of our kids using this program already. Okay, just as in the middle school, K through 4 is also going to be using code.org, which is great because as they use their skills and become more proficient in those coding foundations as they move up through those grades into middle school and even high school. The rigor in this program moves along with their skills. So the Hour of Code through code.org, we're actually going to take this opportunity between December 3rd and December 9th to actually use and grades K through 8, as well as our engineering courses in the high school. It's kind of a global movement to provide the opportunity for students to experience, coding lessons. And they're all pre-designed lessons. They're easy to use. Teachers are going to, I think, love it. And I do welcome you out to our buildings during that time, and I will pass along more information once we get closer to December 3rd. Any questions?
Do we own all this stuff?
We own drones. We also own our VEX robots, the Ozobots, and BOCES also provides us with additional equipment if needed.
This is Jordan.
I love it all. I think it's wonderful, and I love the fact that it's integrated and embedded in the curriculum and not something separate. And I guess I just hope that this is an experience that every student gets, just no matter who their teacher or team is. So will it be across the board for every student, no matter which school or?
Absolutely. Our STEM days was kind of like a kickoff, and other teachers were coming up to see, what was going on, especially the humanities side. And now, before we left for the summer, they were actually using some cross-curricular activities and really designing how can we, do this together, right? So we're looking forward to doing that end of September, early October, because what those activities did was also create that learning environment and that culture, that positive culture for other teachers to begin to learn other students that are not on their roster, right? So, when you see a student in the hallway, they're recognizing other teachers. And it really has created a great learning environment. So yes, across the board. Yes.
I just wanted to say as well, one of the things that we wanted to do is bake it into the teacher experience as well. So it's not just something that we're doing and then it's something that they want to do. We ended up working with them, and in the beginning it's a learning curve, but when we got done, one of the things that we heard a lot of feedback about was how do we do this again? It wasn't as hard as we thought it was going to be. I want to do this more. Can I have a box or two for my own room for my kids? So that transference and giving them the opportunity to be the one that takes ownership of it really helped to kind of spread the word, and now more teachers want to get involved.
Well, I mean, this is very exciting, and I went to one of the STEM days I think at Miller last year, and I would love to see more, so if you can invite us.
Absolutely.
And particularly for, the humanities side, it's not as obvious what the applications would be, I think, and so it would be nice to see what that looks like. So I would love to see it.
Mr. Shaughnessy.
I think this is very exciting. I'm glad to see that the district is going in this direction. If anybody wants to, they can go to the app store of their cell phone and go to the Power of Code and download an app, experience it yourself.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Reverend Childs, I'm sorry.
I had lunch today with a person who's moving from the city into the Kingston area, and he talked about the STEM program and things that was going on in their school. And I didn't have all this information, but I knew we had a STEM program through both seasons, etc. But this is exciting because it really says, hey, we're really incorporating this from elementary through, and it's going to be really great. And I think when I get a chance to speak to him again, I'll let him see this and he'll know that you come to the right place.
Anyone else?
Thank you. Okay. Next on the superintendent's report is superintendent again. And I apologize, I stole the clicker. Halfway through the presentation, I realized I had Okay, good evening again. Over the last 6 years or so, we've gone through several different restructurings in the central office in an attempt to make sure that we're serving our buildings as efficiently and effectively as we can, serving our building leaders and serving our teachers. And one of the things I've always said about education, and I think it's like one of those things that education is revolutionary, is evolutionary, not revolutionary. It means we move slowly. We're like steering a giant, aircraft carrier. It takes a long time to make that turn. And we really don't want to be that way. We want to be nimble. We want to be able to look and see what our needs are, make adjustments, be flexible, and make changes. So with every little thing that happens, there comes an opportunity. We have an opportunity come around in the spring for us to take a second look at what we are doing. And we did that collectively with my cabinet, and working on what could we do to make ourselves more efficient, to really change. We restructured a few years ago, and we did it to serve the needs of that time and the needs of the district at that time. And we feel the needs of the district have changed since then, and we need to look at what we can do to make ourselves more useful, really, to our building principals and to our teachers, and then obviously to the benefit of our students. And what we saw was really struggling in our special education area. And I know this isn't new news around the state and around the country. Special education is one of those areas where we really, people are struggling. And we thought, okay, people are doing everything the same way. What can we do that's a little bit different? So just to give you some idea of what the issues we see are. Now, while we're seeing tremendous increase in graduation rate in our special education students, I mean, dramatic, 25-30% percentage points increase in our graduation rates, we're not seeing that in the lower grades. We're not seeing the achievement in the lower grades. So there's a lot of different things that may play into that. But one of the issues are, we look at our regular education and our 3 through 8 testing, 35% of our students are proficient. Not acceptable, but is what it is right now. And we look at our students with disabilities, 4% are proficient. 3-3, the math regular education students, 39% are proficient, and the students with disabilities, 8%. So we're seeing in our state testing and our ELA and math that our students with disabilities are really not performing. Cost of special education in Kansas City School Districts exceeds $35 million. Classification rate is 26%, which is significantly higher than the New York State average. I would say it was 14% higher, but I don't have the state average date as of right now, but it's approximately 14% higher than the New York State average. The increasing classification rate of 10% since 2005-2006. We've gone up 10% as far as our students who are classified as students with disabilities. Now that at the same time, while our population since then has decreased by almost 20% overall population. The increase in self-controlled, self-contained students with disabilities classes, despite, and all of you know, that several years of really making an effort to have that least restrictive environment and integrated settings for our students. We're still, we're seeing an increase in the students with disabilities in self-contained classes. This is not where we want them. We want them in with regular students, having access to the curriculum with all our students. And we have more than 150 students who we have determined that we cannot service, and they're in out-of-district placements. Two problems with that. One, I don't like to let go of any of our students. I want us to be teaching our students, our teaching the students, and us to be responsible for our students. But on top of that, that's a significant budgetary impact when we send students to out-of-district placement. So if you do what you've always done, you get what you always got. So we're looking at things through that lens and seeing what can we do a little differently than what we've done. Causes of some of our issues, we looked at our futures report a few months ago. One of the things they found in talking to our teachers and talking to our administrators is inconsistent ownership of students with disabilities among faculty and staff. Meaning students in the self-contained classes, their ownership outside of those self-contained classes aren't necessarily there. Who are these students? Are they whatever building students, or are they seen as these are students with disabilities, other special ed students, they belong to the special education department, they don't belong to my building or to my population. Teachers expressed, and these are some of the real telling points for us, teachers expressed a desire for more proactivity, problem solving, and support from central office. This is one of the things that we really kind of keyed in on, was this piece of information from our faculty. And then RTI needs to be improved, clarified, and supported. RTI is, kind of floating around out there. I always say RTI to me is that golden ticket. This is how we're going to make a difference using our response to intervention program. But it means different things to different people. It's being implemented differently from special ed, differently from special ed than it is from regular ed. We need to get all on the same page and move forward with that. So in short, what's the problem? The problem is silos. And one of the things we've tried to do is eliminate silos, where secondary education is one place, elementary place is one place, special ed is another place, and they operate as if they're their own school districts within our school district, islands of departments. We want to eliminate those silos, and in order to do that, we want to reconfigure. And we want to fold special education operations into the teaching and learning department and eliminate the silos. So we want to do that by making some structural changes. Obviously, the teaching and learning department will remain, and students with disability department, the special ed department will fall underneath the deputy superintendent of teaching and learning, which is John Burge, which many of you know and some people don't. It actually does right now. The old model had 3 assistant superintendents. This model will have 2 assistant superintendents. The curriculum leaders will oversee the respective students with disability departments. That means our assistant superintendent for secondary education, Ms. Bonville, will be in charge of overseeing the special education departments in the secondary levels, and our assistant superintendent, Dr. Valicella, for elementary, will oversee the special education departments in the elementary levels. We wanted to provide more support for them as well and move to a 2-director model. 1 director of teaching and learning, and 1 director of students with disabilities, which we already have, which is Beth Lewis Jackson. And we will continue to have 5 assistant directors who will work in support of the entire department. So not necessarily pigeonholing who we have. When we use our people the way we need to use our people for how we need to use them at that time. Kind of an organizational chart. Once again, I'll go back to the fact that Kate is on maternity leave, so you have to live with my very poor operations of technology here. But I thought I'd done all right. Deputy superintendent, assistant super for elementary and secondary. with them, a director of K through 12, teaching and learning, a director of special education, supported by our 5 assistant directors. Now, you see, I did keep 2 as students with disabilities. Those are real specific areas of expertise for the people in those current positions. We do want to keep them there, but again, they're working all as one. The idea behind this really is curriculum is curriculum. How we deliver the curriculum may be different for students with disabilities than it is for great general ed students, but curriculum is curriculum, and we're supposed to be delivering the curriculum to all students and giving access to the curriculum to all students. The curriculum experts in these departments are going to make sure that's happening. They're not going to be solely focused on mandates and compliance. They're going to be focused on delivering curriculum and student achievement, and student learning, and student growth. There is always a budgetary impact to everything, so I always throw that in there. This is one of those situations where the budgetary impact actually is a bit of a savings. When we looked at the cost of replacing an assistant superintendent, we eliminated one of the assistant directors. We added the assistant, the 2-director model, and added some, again, compensation for the cabinet members who are doing the work up top. We look at about savings in addition of about $124,000. Mr. Olson will look at that and tell me I'm off by $5,000 to $7,000 on one direction or another, but that's the general gist of where we think we are budgetary. So we feel we will be delivering a more efficient, more effective, more supportive administrative team for our staff and for our buildings with spending less money, which is something that you all know I tried to make happen. And that is that. Any questions?
Mrs. Jordan.
I so appreciate you trying something new to eliminate the silo effect that to me is a negative effect. My only concern is that when you predicate it on state test scores, those little, when we first started and we looked at the percentages of kids, I think we have to acknowledge that those tests that they are taking are not appropriate for them. That's why the state has asked for a waiver, which they were denied by the federal government. But I think it's important that we use, as Dr. Jacobowitz always talks about, we need to use local, as much local assessment as possible to really, because those numbers to me are not valid.
Yeah, I think our STAR data would tell us the same story.
Right.
Our STAR data would tell us the same story, and I think one of the things is we're not just looking at that.
Right.
That's why we have several different things we're looking at. Okay. That was just one piece of the puzzle, but I understand what you're saying.
I just feel that it's almost like, and the futures report, I have the same concern about. I don't know how much real valid data we get from that, but I certainly support the idea that we look at the growth, and that is really the most important thing. And the fact that the curriculum is, as you said, delivered differently, but all students are exposed to it in a meaningful way. So I really appreciate the thought that went into it.
And I do appreciate the concern about the future support. One of the things I was very conscious of when pulling this out was I took what the teachers said. So when I heard what the teacher, I wasn't listening. A lot of the other things I did look at. What I wanted to see, what were our teachers saying, telling the people who came in and did this report, what were they saying? These are things that came from the teachers. So I thought, if our goal is to be more supportive to the classroom and to the buildings, what are our teachers saying? And that's why I pulled those 3 bullets.
And I think it's really important that we are considering everybody who works here as one, and that it's not separated by unique factors. So I appreciate it.
So just two things. I also appreciate your reconsideration of this. It's been a few years under the other way that we were working, and now it's time to rethink it. When we first moved to that way of structuring, we were trying to bring special ed under TNL by having the assistant superintendent level. And so my understanding from what you're saying now is that it wasn't close enough. It still gravitated to be its own thing. And so I get that. I'm concerned. I mean, it's a lot of work, and it's a big department, and there are a lot of kids, and there's a lot of money. And so I'm just concerned that now it's a lot of work kind of folded into our fabulous team, but it's a lot of work.
It is a lot more. I think, one of the things we talked about, and I think coming from, John and Beth and Stacia, this was, they would rather do a lot of work and make it work. And I think that was kind of where this came from. The idea of, you're right, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, we decided we were going to fold everything under teaching and learning, including the assistant superintendent for special education, and there is a gravitational pull of special education for whatever reason into its own place, and I think George said any object of certain mass creates its own orbit, and that's right. A large object creates its own orbit, and that's what you have here. I think we're trying really so. And I don't want to say this in that we have fabulous teachers working with our students with disabilities, and they're doing great things with them. I think we need to provide better support for them so they can do greater things with them. And this is the model that will do that, and the idea of, like I said, getting away from the idea of mandates and compliance and getting into the idea of curriculum at the administrative level. At the administrative level, not the classroom level. They're doing what they can do, but we're very focused on mandates and compliance. We want to turn that focus to assisting and really looking at programs and looking at curriculum.
So as I was looking at the organization chart, and I'm looking, you first presented this to the board in early August, October 1st, maybe even before that. So there's not a one-to-one correspondence of where those lines go, which means there has to be a lot of, Ms. Jordan, I think, said, culture, it has to be, it's really going to be a cultural change, it's going to take more than a year to get it working right.
Yeah, I think we're hoping to see, we're going to measure our progress, we're going to measure our progress half a year, measure our progress in June, come back to the board, talk about where we are and why we think this is effective, or what we need to change. And one of the things that I tell a lot of people, there's a lot of boxes and there's a lot of lines and there's a lot of titles and things, but truly this team here works on everything. They're really, the flexibility, if Dr. Felicello needs someone to work on ELLs, one of our assistant directors is doing it. If she needs someone to work on pre-K, one of the directors is doing it. If one of the teachers from the elementary school needs a piece of information and sees Ms. Bondville, she can ask her, we're going to tell her. So we don't stay in those boxes, even though those boxes exist up there. Those are our areas of responsibility, but people aren't, I haven't heard a lot of, that's not my job, which
so as
can be heard.
As I was looking at this, it came to mind this observation. But when you get rid of all the silos, then everybody's going to have to graze in the same pasture.
What's a bigger?
Well, it's really just kind of builds actually on what Mr. Shaughnessy was saying, and it's kind of a question about this balance between the flexibility that you're searching for, but also the responsibility of stuff. So, so I appreciate that there is flexibility and that people can answer all kinds of questions, but if it's not somebody's specific job that gets them, it's kind of easier to fall through. So I'm a little concerned about 3 assistant directors without, I'm assuming you're going to define those.
They're going to be defined, and really a lot of what we do here is through our goal setting process with each individual. Dr. Felicello knows what the areas of her specific responsibility. Ms. Bondville knows specific responsibility, and a lot of that falls within the goal setting process. And I think the flexibility piece of it is, we've been without an assistant superintendent for special education since June 30th, actually, probably since June 1st, really. No one has not done the job. The job has been getting done by the teaching and learning department in the interim, and by the staff that's already in the special education department. So I understand what you're saying. It's flexible, but I wouldn't say it was necessarily like in an amorphous blob where we don't know where people's real responsibilities are and how to measure their effectiveness as an institution.
There was just one other thing that occurred to me while you're having this discussion, and it kind of goes back to what we're trying to accomplish at Mahar with the preschool program. And because I come from a special ed background and I believe in early intervention, I'm just throwing this out there that I would think that maybe that's some philosophical discussion we should have about whether or not, I know that everybody's concerned about the percentage of special ed, but I think if we look at the program that you've initiated at Chambers in terms of trying to work very early and intensely with kids, then I would really hope that that opportunity might be expanded to other schools, so that might in fact stem the tide of saying that kid is a special ed student. And I think unless we do something intentional like that, we might be missing kids, and we don't want to do that, because I really do believe that that early intervention that we're trying to provide for all of our students with Mahar, we have to really be intentional about that with our students with disabilities, because very young children need that support as well. So I hope that that is part of what we talk about.
Just a brief comment. We did have the opportunity with the recent departure, and we all know change is necessary, and if we do flesh out some of those more ambiguous positions, I know you have that set in your mind, and that's great. I just want to say I appreciate the effort, and I'm especially glad that it's also more cost efficient for our residents. To me, that's a win-win, and it's worth a try, for sure.
Mr. Shaughnessy?
I'd like to just make an observation, to put together the coding program and this reorganization, and especially in the early elementary grades. I think when kids can come to school and play with robots, they're going to really want to come to school, a lot more. And it may have an impact on the number of kids that end up in special education, because they're going to have an opportunity to excel at something different than what traditionally that they have to do in the classroom. I hope it turns out that way.
Anybody else? Thank you very much. Are we done? Okay, we've reached that portion of the agenda where we're going to be discussing the 2018-2019 tax rates and tax shifts. So, I guess, shall we take these individually?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one, Resolution B-17, the approval of the homestead, non-homestead tax shift. The resolution is quite long. Do you wish me to read the whole resolution? No. Okay. You've read it, and it's available for the public to be set up online. So I'll entertain a motion.
So,
Sarah? Okay, any questions?
I'd like to make a comment.
Okay, and then if there are any questions, we prevail upon Mr. Olson in order to clarify things, huh? And Mr. Michael?
Before we go for the vote, I would like to say we on the Finance Committee met yesterday, and we had much discussion and consideration about these the tax rates and the tax shift. And we always have in mind the taxpayers, and also some of the factors that throw us in, is beyond our control. So that's all I can say. And we come for the vote.
Mr. Shaughnessy?
I'm not sure if I'm right on this, but when I look at the tax shift of 11%, I think that's a little bit less than last year, or is it a little bit higher? A little bit higher. A little higher than last year. A little bit higher. So that means we're shifting a little bit more to the non-homestead.
Shifting a little bit more to non-homestead. However, the shift is actually from the maximum shift that we could have made, this shift is preferable to non-homestead than last year's.
So our business community should like that.
I believe so.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor of resolution 17, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Move on to resolution 18, tax rates. Entertain a motion.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All right, hearing no discussion, I'm going to ask Mr. Carter to do a roll call.
Ruben Child.
Yes.
Ms. Collins.
Yes.
Ms. Guido.
Yes.
Dr. Vogel. Yes. Ms. Jordan.
Yes.
Ms. Lau. Yes. Mr. Michael.
Yes.
Mr. Shaughnessy.
Yes.
Ms. Shear.
Yes.
I would ask that you each sign the tax warrant for me.
So the tax warrant will be coming around, get your signature. Okay, and while that's going around, we'll move on to the consent agenda because we sold a lot of business this evening. Are there any resolutions that any trustee would like removed from the consent agenda? Yes, Dr. Chakowitz.
DOE 12 and DOE 14.
DOE 12 and 14. Any others? Well, seeing no others, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda minus DOE 12 and DOE 14. Motion.
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor of consent agenda minus DOE 12 and 14, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so we'll take those individually. DOE 12, I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Discussion. Dr. Cody.
I was looking through this professional development plan, which is at the bottom, and it seemed very process oriented, and so I was wondering if the team could just give us kind of a quick summary of kind of what the substance of professional development goals will be for this year.
Yes?
Yes, you're right, the process is very well defined in the plan. It's reviewed annually. The process is very important because it connects us to everything we're doing in terms of our planning, our goal setting, connected to our DTSDE. So the short of it is, at the end of each year, based on our goal setting and based on the tenants, our 6 tenants, we gathered our information, again, progress monitoring throughout the year, and we summarize that through a committee process and identify those areas of professional development. Most of the time it's those that we want to continue growing or moving forward, and then sometimes it's adding to our list. But in the various tenants for this coming school year, we'll continue to focus on higher order thinking skills. Differentiation will continue as always. Something new will be our focus with literacy this year, very specific, not only at the elementary level, but also at the middle school level. Again, our work with restorative practice, alternatives to suspension, our new mental health and wellness in the curriculum. We plan to introduce those or have more professional development in those particular key areas this year.
All right, thank you. I'm particularly interested, we have ended the year talking about restorative justice and restorative practices and professional development around that, and you mentioned that. We also talked about working with our monitors and our
additional professional development always is a topic is just on school safety, climate, et cetera. So I believe Mr. Olson supervises Mr. Parker in that entire department, but I know they've already received training this past, last school year. We'll make sure they continue to have access to the same training.
Right, because I remember that they had received some training, some of them, but not everybody, and then there was an extension that Mr. Parker talked about wanting to enroll.
And I expect that'll be a topic next week on our superintendent's conference day. Our monitors, including our part-time monitors, are all expected to work on that day, so that would be part of their day next Tuesday.
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor of BOE 12? Please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention. We'll move on to BOE 14. I'll entertain a motion.
So
Okay, discussion. Dr. Jacobowitz.
So this is actually related to something you mentioned earlier, Dr. Colino. I was looking at this, in this report, and there's a link to the RTI plan, which looks like it was last updated in 2014.
No, it's been updated. I think the only thing that hasn't been updated was the date on it. No, it actually has been updated like 3 times last year, each time we
Updated
meet.
this past summer.
Yeah.
Because I remember conversations in TNL about it. Okay, so
Right.
if that kind of
The cover page needs to be.
I mean, and that's silly, but I do remember many conversations about the big RTI.
We actually finalized. Yeah, Stacia and our teams we just worked on it, actually finished last week, finalizing the edits to it.
Okay, and that's what's in here. That's what's linked to this plan.
Yeah, so we were a little, again, challenged with not having Kate Heidecker here, but the goal of
She's gonna ask for a raise when she gets back. You know that we keep
the
saying.
goal of that overall plan of special education plan was to insert as many links to the plans that we're referencing or the policies that we're referencing. So as we update our plans annually, we don't always have to go back and make all of those changes if we can link them directly. So there's been a little challenge with making that connection, and we're really just in the end of our summer season of making sure all those plans, not only they've been updated, but that they get onto the website. So that will be the link that will bring you to the updated
To the
RTI plan.
But
Yes.
that's not updated yet.
That's not,
So
yeah.
if we approve this tonight, is that a problem? It'll just get relinked at some point.
And I hate to use this term, but the RTI plan is a living document, so it changes frequently.
Right. No, I know that as a TNL chair, I mean, we talk about it pretty frequently. I mean, just a few months ago, I had a conversation in the major presentation, but I just want to make sure those updates, which are thoughtful and deliberate, are reflected in our plan that we then submit to the state.
Right, so we don't necessarily submit this plan to the state. This is more of a compliance action that the Board of Education has seen our plan, we've presented it.
Right,
and that
it should
you
be
will-
up to date.
It absolutely should be up to date, but we have to have it available and on our website, up to date and available if the Board of Education requests it. But it's not something we actually submit, so it is evolving and constantly changing as.
It's
So,
something we have to approve, so.
yes.
But so which leads me to my next question, which you may then have a similar answer to. The graduation credentials and graduation requirements, that doesn't seem to be up to date either. And I'm seeing a link. So maybe it's just a good link. But, so for example, last year, now don't we have a possibility where students they can go for superintendent's consideration? And that's not listed here, but maybe it's just a link update issue.
I think as we update those plans, the link will remain the same because they're on the SharePoint and in the website, but the content will update as that plan is updated in its original spot, but the link will remain the same in the special education plan. So once the RTI final draft, which was completed on the 28th, is uploaded to its correct spot, that link will bring you to the correct spot.
Right.
And it's the same link.
Okay, so on page 8, for example, of this plan, it lists, options for graduation for students. And this latest one that I just mentioned isn't correct, it's not there. And the CDOS one, I think, is no longer accurate. But that's not linked, that's actually written. So I don't know, maybe we should just rely on a link that goes to the SED page, because, it is changing all the time. So I have to go and update every single page that has this information. It's really, cumbersome. But it leaves this one page kind of not right.
This plan is, I totally understand your point. This plan is much more comprehensive, I would say, than what we're actually required in order to be in compliance. And we did that intentionally, and really credit to Beth Lewis Jackson, our Director of Special Education, is really the main author of this plan. But like I said, there's a lot of the components that you're seeing in there are not necessarily, we're obligated to make sure that they're part of that overall guide. So the other way to do this would just to be to print it all out in hard copy and provide it to you that way. So again, we're just trying to be efficient, but we do want to make sure it's accurate and updated. So the specific links you reference, I'm happy to make sure we go back and double check all that and come back to you at our next board meeting with those updates.
It looks like the link is fine for graduation, it's just in text.
Well, that's just what I wanted to ask. You mentioned page 8. At the top of page 8, there's a link to the New York State Education Department graduation requirements, graduate requirements that HTML. No, those are complete, those are correct. Correct?
Those are correct. The text is below it. It's just not updated. And it changes all the time, which is frustrating. But if this is something that we approve and that we have to say, but it's something that we have to kind of, put our stamp on, I think I just want to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward, and our RTI, we've worked on a lot, and it's updated and it's solid. And I'm hoping that it's effective here, and then some of the other technologies also. So that's all. This report is 250 pages, so it's, again, cumbersome to work through the whole thing, but I just wanted to prove the two things that I noticed that I
So should these pages that have requirements that are constantly changing, should there be a prominent statement that one should refer to the link for the most up-to-date information on that
just have
topic?
the link.
Yeah, I take responsibility for this one because when it was, the first draft didn't have the links, and I was the one that wanted to work with our PR department to have that built in, so we wouldn't be starting over every time we revised the plan. So that might be another option. We could identify those plans that are changing constantly and put some kind of a disclaimer comment.
Or just that the link is the most, the link is the path to the most up-to-date information.
Just trying to get as much information in one place for
Yeah.
Sure.
Should we, would you be more comfortable if we amended the motion so that it included that language that you suggested? Or that the link will represent the most recent or the most updated form? Because if it's always changing, it may never.
No, you'll never catch up.
Yeah. So, and I understand your concern about wanting us to make sure that we're holding ourselves responsible for what we're passing. So it seems to me we could just include Shaughnessy's suggestion, and it would remedy that.
Maybe we should wait before we approve it, maybe until the next meeting. No.
Is this something that needs to be done?
We were hoping to have it approved.
So would you want that, like in a prologue, a statement saying that, the most recent, up-to-date version of this plan can be found looking at the link, that it's an ongoing revision? And if we put in quarterly reports to the TL, where we are with the.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, if there's an introductory statement that says something about, you know, things are constantly changing and links are kept up to date, I think that would be.
Can you add that language?
But I think
Add
it's
that
added
language
in
now?
text and it's fine. I don't think we need to delay the vote. I mean, it sounds, there, in some ways they're just obvious, but I just want to make sure what we have on our page is what we are. Right.
So I guess I'll send out. Any other questions? All right, all those in favor of BO 814, with the addition of the prologue saying the most up-to-date version of the plan we found on the link.
Right, if I'll leave it.
Okay,
Yes.
so make that amendment, so we have a motion for the amendment.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that?
Vote on the amendment.
Okay. So, we vote on the amended DOE 14. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Thank you very much. And that's clear, I guess that brings us to donations, yeah.
I'm sorry, just to make one quick comment on the consent agenda. We do have one of their teachers who we've hired here this last month, who's been very patient in the back for the last 2 hours waiting to get appointed, and it's Ms. Kira Tukko, right?
Yeah.
Who is now joining us, and I would like to say, the one thing I'll say is I interview almost every candidate who comes through. I did the last interview, and I'll give a little secret. Every candidate gets one question from me that's exactly the same. And there's another secret about, I'd say, none of them answer it in the manner that I would like to hear the answer. That doesn't necessarily disqualify them from employment, obviously, because none of them do. And I will say that Kira did answer that question in the way that I thought was, the most appropriate. And so that interview sticks out in my mind pretty clearly, and I actually went up to Dr. Felicello later that day, and I said, where are we putting this young lady, because she is going to be great. And so I know, I always talk about the most important thing I do is hire great teachers, and I'm very confident that, this is one of those times. So congratulations and welcome.
Thank you. Somebody's microphone.
Mine, right?
And now, Ms. Guido, would you read the donations?
I have a question for him. What's the question?
I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you. Well, the thing is, I'm sure she doesn't even know it. No one knows this. There's only 5 people in the room who know that question.
All right. Donations, D6, whereas the Enfield Villa Middle School is the recipient of a generous donation from the Ultra Savings Charitable Foundation in the amount of $1,000. We have D7, whereas JW Valley Middle School is the recipient of a generous donation from United Healthcare in the amount of $1,000. Thank you for generous donations.
Thank you very much. Okay. This brings us to Board of Education, and the first thing on the agenda for Board of Education are board goals. Now, everyone should have received an email which contains the draft goals, and Suzanne and I worked on the goals. Nobody's really trying to fit another member of the committee, but yes. The draft goals, but we haven't received any comments except one from Mr. Shaughnessy and Mr. Shaughnessy in April Post. And I constructed another draft goal, which I'll please pass around. No, to address his concern. So I'll pass it along. Oh, I'm sorry. I was trying to conserve paper. now we can
We're really staying.
Yeah, number 8. Is there anybody who didn't get a number 8? This is going to be a number 8, okay? Yes, I think.
Suzanne did
number 8.
We can just share. We know what concerns.
No, give me one more.
No, we're good.
You're good. All right. So, I have not received any suggestions. I was given a gracious offer by the superintendent because I was agonizing over the fact that they weren't SMART goals, but sometimes our role doesn't lend itself to SMART goals because we're not in the classroom anymore. But so I would ask if you have a suggestion and you haven't forwarded it, please let us know now. Yes.
Sorry, I didn't know that I had 4 questions. But my only suggestion would be, as I said earlier about Dr. Palomino, that one thing that we really spent a lot of time talking about at the end of the school year was training and monitors and really thinking about our SROs and our security and kind of issues that are associated with proportionality around that. And so I think it's important that we name that and that we think, and that there are a bunch of places where we have lists, so STEM questions, sort of justice, including our security staff, something like that. I think we need to be specific and name it for ourselves to keep track, but also so that we know that we heard them and that we're engaged.
Do you want to make it safety, or you just want to specifically
I
say
don't think
security?
Well, what do you mean?
Well, the safety committee is going to be addressing that as well. Security? Are you saying security?
We're talking about our monitors in our schools, our security guards.
Culture of safety.
Right.
Yeah, but the safety committee will be addressing that. Do you just want to specifically refer to security?
No, I think she's saying that we included in number 3, is that correct? Yes.
So just
So
add
that
that?
where it says restorative justice, comma, including our security staff.
Right, our safety and security staff.
Okay, how about if I say which includes? A systemic approach to restorative justice, which includes training. Yes?
Yes, for monitors.
Okay. Which includes training for.
We had talked about exploring the role of SROs in our schools, and we have done that to some extent, but I think that in my mind, we are not finished with that, like that's not off the table yet. So I guess maybe that's included in that.
Well, since Mrs. Lau and I are now on the Destroy Safety Committee, we can make sure it is. Is that enough to change, though, to satisfy
I
your
think so, I
concern
just wanted
here?
to be named.
Okay. Any other suggested changes?
I think that
number?
Mr. Shaughnessy's suggestion is a good one. I'm just looking to see if there's somewhere we can
Add it
include it.
instead of making it all.
Well, I think it can be, but I just wonder if we have
We're going to adopt this tonight.
We would like to. We would like to. I mean, I guess we could stretch it to. We'd like to have it by the beginning of school, but we could stretch it to the first meeting in September if you have real serious concerns about it. But if we can amend them easily.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Does that address your concern?
Well, and I don't know what you meant by Dr. Catalino suggesting we have more SMART goals, but that's one of the things that always bothers me about the goals that we've had in recent years is that, monitor and support. I mean, that just seems like something we should be doing. I mean, that's like our goal to do our job.
But they are specific, and I think, my impression is with the updates to the annotated calendar, I think that we have a blueprint right there for how the year will go with the reports that we will receive. And certainly, you know that they're coming up, so in advance you could ask any questions about them. So in essence, that's our job all the time, to monitor and
So,
support.
you know, when you get to the end of the period, then, you know, how do you measure? I mean,
Well,
are you
and be
successful
evaluated as
because you?
superintendent.
Well,
Right, you're successful because we receive the report.
yeah. I mean, it just seems,
Well, some of these goals are very hard to attain because there's multiple things
Right.
within them, and some of them are also recurring goals, like number one is the same goal as last year.
Well, there's nothing wrong with
Right, I'm just saying
that.
that.
Or we have projects going on.
Ongoing.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, Mr. Shaughnessy, but I kind of feel like, for me, when I read them, it kind of highlights those issues that we are trying to move forward. So I understand it's hard to measure monitoring and supporting, but I think that what it does is define for the community what our intentions are and what our purpose is. So sure, we monitor and support everything in the district, that's our responsibility. But I think what we do with this is kind of say, well, these are the things we're trying to value right now and focus on for the year. And I guess we could have an open-ended goal of trying to be responsive to, you know, anything that might come up. I mean, that might be a goal that but I think we try to do that anyway. Do we have to write it down? But, you know, I hear what you're saying, but I don't know how better to use these goals. I kind of feel different.
well, I mean, I don't have an answer, but for instance, where they achieve increased diversity of the teaching and administrative staff. I mean, I think the board should have a goal that's percentage-based or something like that. I mean, something that, and it's not necessarily for this year, but something that, well, how much closer did we get to satisfying that goal
Well,
that we can look at
I,
next year?
you know, I don't know. I have a concern about that, which is we had this bit of a discussion. I think when you set a percentage and you don't know who the candidates are gonna be, you force yourself into a position where you're in order to achieve the goal, you're either going to accept maybe someone who's not a good fit or not find anybody, you know, who will be diverse for that particular position. I don't know about, I think to say, to continue to advocate for expanded search efforts to achieve increased diversity in the teaching and administrative staff. I mean, we can see an increase from year to year, but I think we need to give the administration the ability to make decisions about personnel. That's not us, that's them. Yes.
So I agree that we can't micromanage and make those decisions for the team, but what we do have control over is policy, and we can make this goal, and then maybe what we can do is integrate it in a policy about hiring that there will be a conscious effort to be made around diversity, and it's in our policy, and it's in there, and that doesn't mean that we have to create a specific percentage, but if we are really making that a priority, then it goes to policy, that part of the hiring process is paying attention to diversity and matching.
Well, paying attention, I like that language much better than a percentage.
So then it's more than just our goal for this board and Dr. Pellegrino's goal, which I think we've made progress on. But it becomes part of the policy and how we do business here in Houston. And I mean, that's something we can control.
Any other suggestion? I'm sorry, Mr. Shuck, I think Mr. Michael has seen it.
Well, I think I mentioned that before, like, you know, maybe like twice a year, we revisit our goals, you know, at a regular meeting, or monthly meeting, before we end up to the end of the year evaluation.
More often.
More often, that's what I'm
At
saying.
least
So that way
quarterly.
we can see what progress we make. If we like somewhere, then maybe we'll do something more. So. But that will help us for the final evaluation, the board evaluation at the end of the year.
Absolutely, and I think in many of the goals it's reflected that, you know, see the annotated calendar, and also at least quarterly reports. We have got to take a look at ourselves frequently. Mr. Shaughnessy.
I don't mean this to be critical of anybody, you know, the board or the administration or anybody in the school district. but we've had for years and years and years talked about the diversity of the staff. And the thing that's happening is that the diversity in our student population is increasing way faster than the diversity in our faculty and staff. So that we are less, so when kids are, so the discrepancy between the minority representation on our faculty is getting further and further away from the minority representation or of the student population.
And I think one of the other things, just to add to what Mr. Johnson said, and that's true, and that's a conversation that I've had with superintendents around the state. And the other thing is the unpredictability of the change in our demographics. If you had told me 7 years ago, well, no, I shouldn't say 7 years ago, but if you had said 15 years ago to someone that our Latino population would outpass our black population, you probably would have said, no, it won't. And it has. So while we put in our efforts, so your efforts to get candidates from one underrepresented group, then you have to switch gears quickly because you're way behind all of a sudden. So it's a bit of a shuffle and to figure out where we need to make hires because it could change. So it is a.
I agree, and I think it's important to note that this isn't unique to this district.
No,
It's certainly statewide, and I dare say nationwide, yeah.
I hear this all the time. And number one, there's no question. And maybe it's Hispanics that's growing or whatever. I think our recruiting is not just to get black minorities, doesn't just mean blacks, it means all of them. And for example, I thought that we did a great job this year when we brought in CUNY students. We wined them and dined them in the whole business to try to bring them into the district. Okay. We have today's students, tomorrow's teachers. That's a pool of people that are potentially available. We didn't do the same. If our emphasis is to try to do that, then we need to start focusing on doing those things. And to say that this constant thing of sort of like, well, where do we find them, or are they out there? I think that's really a lot of nonsense. There are people coming around. We got to recruit, and we got to try to bring them in.
Can you amend this so that it says what you want to continue to advocate for expanded search efforts, or to achieve the increased diversity? You don't want to. What specifically would you like it to say?
No, I have no problem with what that says. My problem is that it can be just a generalized statement. I think that we need to specifically do things to bring people in. I applaud the administration. For example, there were several people that were hired this year, but that was pushing, getting literally walking to people and saying, hey, you graduated, bring your application in, and then call them up and saying, there's some applications there, would you please take a look at these people? And it's not saying we just take anybody, because that stuff is all. When people graduate, they do, and when they're able to achieve, we're not saying we want to take second best.
So expanded search efforts make you feel better about it, or no?
Well, yeah,
That would be.
yes.
Can I make a suggestion, piggybacking on that? Why don't we say to continue to expand our Today's Students, Tomorrow's Teachers program, and to repeat the effort of bringing CUNY students up? That's very specific.
And to find other methods.
Right, right. I mean, it doesn't have to be limited to that, but those are two things that obviously we have invested time and energy in. They're ongoing, but maybe we need to specify them. Would that seem?
Well, that's positive too. But for example, you have some people who have been teaching in this district as substitute teachers. And there are some that are black. why aren't they being considered to be hired? If they're good enough to come and to substitute year after year after year, and we're looking for more money, why are we not bringing them in? And if they're not good enough to be part of our staff, then why are they good enough to be substitute teachers?
It's a different job. I will say that. There are some people that are excellent substitutes who are not necessarily, it's a different job. So I agree that they should be looked at very carefully, but
Are we?
I don't know. I don't know. But that's another thing. It's just that I think we have done a couple of things, and I think, as you said, we should expand those opportunities. But I think we specifically are trying to encourage more, like we did we do ninth graders last year? So this year for today's students, tomorrow's teachers, we should have ninth and 10th graders, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, we actually had some scattered throughout. They did,
Oh, okay.
we had our first graduate of today's teachers, tomorrow's students, students this year. So they did take some 11th and 12th periods, even though they really didn't get into them, but they kind of fast-tracked them and they were able to graduate.
I mean, we could try to double the number of students that are enrolled in that, or, I mean, if you like percentages, if you like that specific, or but at least increase the number of students that are participating in the program. And have we used that resource to fill potential positions?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're there for us.
So if it reads, continue efforts to expand today's students, tomorrow's teachers, and other district efforts to achieve increased diversity in teaching and administrative staff. No, keep going. Here, no more words.
I want to add something though, I mean, talk about like those women window. What the data shows from the applications, I noticed like a lot of people applying outside the district, I mean, outside the community. And this is why, I mean, why we get more applications from teachers, different areas. I mean, I don't see too many local.
Because Kingston's a wonderful place to work.
Yeah, but I know, but they said what happened. It's like they were saying, it's like we have people, but why do they apply? That's.
I have a suggestion. What if we say, increase number of students enrolled in today's students, tomorrow's teachers, and advocate for expanded search efforts to achieve increased diversity in teaching administrative staff. And that allows us to bring cookie students up, or whatever these talented people can think of. Okay?
Just to throw to that, I think maybe we want to avoid naming particular programs that we're involved in. Unless we're going to be more general about continue to expand the programs development, because there are some factors in that we don't.
Alrighty then.
Their capacity to serve more is part of it, there's a lot of different, we don't want to say we're going to increase something and know that maybe they don't have the capacity to.
Just say, increase number of students, apostrophe.
We can leave it the way it is. That's really fine.
Yeah,
That's really fine. It's not what's here, it's what we do as an administration.
Absolutely, that's how we.
So I just think it needs to be, I'd like to see it as a separate goal, a separate statement. I think that sometimes we need a specific statement in our goals as to what the board would like to see. Not embedded in.
It's not embedded, it's number.
So why don't we just say,
Why
don't we add
it? Take somewhere else.
why don't we just say achieve increased diversity in teaching and administrative staff? That's the goal.
All right,
So
start with the
this is
G.
a goal 8.
Okay.
Do we have to say chief, say increase?
Can you just say increase diversity in teaching and administrative staff?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, all right, and then we don't, can we have a report by June?
And I would just like to congratulate Dr. Felisell. I don't know if I did it before, but that CUNY program that you organized, I think you were the main organizer, and the rest of the administration, that was excellent.
Very well, definitely. liked it so much, I heard it all day. Okay, wait, oh, yes, I'm sorry.
So this is a comment on the earlier conversation, and promise will not be that long, about monitor support review, blah, blah, which I understand feels very passive and not very active, but I feel that when we name the things that we named here, we state them as priorities for the district, and then these guys, these people, then when we go and like actually they do the work, and they're held accountable then, so they have to get the report, but you know, if the report isn't satisfactory, or if we're not achieving the evaluation rate or whatever, then we step in and then ask the question. So I feel like, even though I agree that it's kind of hard to say, well, you gave a report, so we met our goal, but I think it's in the statement of what the priority is, and that we expect a report, and we expect a certain outcome. And so I think I actually think that is, that's kind of what our job is.
Yeah, and just can I expand on that, because that's, you know, I gave a report, and the report will then tell you if we were effective in meeting a goal, which you will then use to reflect on my evaluation, which is the board's, I'm your employee, you know, I'm the person
And
that you.
then we can evaluate ourselves, and if we haven't achieved these things, weigh in then.
We always have this conversation, we always grapple with it when we do our own self-evaluation, but certain things like social, emotional health, you know, how do you quantify that? I mean, you have to set monitor support. I think it was very well put, what you said, Dr. Jacobowitz, and you're right, we don't want to micromanage, we need to let people lead and use their talents.
I think some of these areas are spelled out very well in the district plan and the superintendent's goals. I don't think, you know, I think some of them are going to be continuing goals. I know in your comment, clear that, you know, this looks like last year's, but yeah, but we've added them on.
I know, I didn't say that, I just one of them was the same. This is very different, there's a lot of information.
I mean, at the end of the day, the issue that we're gonna have is that there's just a lot in here.
Yeah, there's so much.
So in some ways, you know, we have this bulleted out, and number one, I kind of feel like we should bullet it out just so we don't miss anything. And I know that makes it really
Every
long.
one of them? We
Yeah.
bulleted 3 as well.
No, 3 didn't come out.
Oh, I just haven't here.
Oh.
Yes, you don't.
It's okay.
So much for
saving
bullets.
Yeah. I mean, it's not silly, but I'm a big fan of bullets. Well, if you don't, like, seriously,
My
like,
son-in-law for
some of the
fixing my
big, big,
printer.
big, you have to number them.
I think we should make it a little checkbox.
Yeah.
That we can check.
You don't have to bite the bullet.
I will put it under advisement for, what's the progress survey?
Keep them coming.
Anybody else need one? I just want to make sure I have the right version.
I think you gave me your copy, Nora.
Written.
It has notes on
Did I
it.
write it?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
You want it back?
Yeah. Neil will be calling me saying, where's my revision? Well, I think I have it as we were talking. So are you?
Do we got one more?
To adopt these tonight? I'll share it. Okay, so I'll just review what I've changed. Okay. Are there any other changes you would like made to these?
Well, we're just going to add on.
Add number 8, which will be now starting with increase diversity in teaching administrative staff. Report by June, or report by August. Well, if we're going to evaluate ourselves, we'll have to.
Well, a report by June isn't going to show you any hiring, it may show you some
Yeah,
efforts.
we don't-
It can probably report on efforts
Yeah,
in June
report on
and
effort.
hiring in August.
Okay, reports in June? Sure.
On efforts.
Report on effort, June, by June 2019. Okay? By June 2019, there you go. Search has increased. Okay, any other changes? Okay, with your indulgence, please tell me if you don't feel comfortable. Are you ready to entertain a motion to adopt these and make them goals for 2018, 2019?
Move that.
Yes.
Move that.
So wait, let me just review what I changed.
Okay.
Okay, under number 3, systematic approach to restorative justice. Systemic. To restorative justice, which includes training for monitors, security guards, and SROs.
Okay.
And then number 8, increase diversity in teaching administrative staff. To report, is that what you just
Report.
stated?
Increase diversity in teaching and or administrative staff, and report on efforts by June 2019. Superintendent will go out.
Okay, got it.
And are we going to bullet every one of them then?
If you would like me to.
Instead of a list, I think it's
Okay.
a good one.
She wants everyone bulleted. I did say
We all don't change the content.
it doesn't change the content, it just removes the commas and puts bullets in. Okay, is everyone comfortable with that revision, and then the change in the format, the way it appears visually? All right. Okay, call the question. All those in favor of adopting these goals for 2018, 2019? Wait, why do we have a motion?
Yeah.
We did have a motion, yes.
I didn't catch that. Who was the
Mrs.
first?
Collins,
Okay.
Mr. Michael.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. Okay. Gives you roll call. Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Abstentions. All right, we'll get these up on the website. And congratulations, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, before we go on to committee reports, very quickly, I'm going to present this to you in this stone. Never make it so.
Thanks for making some.
Yes, it's like, you know, Star Trek, Next Generation, make it so. Number 1.
Goal getter.
Goal getter.
Goal getter.
I don't even play soccer.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the Audit Finance Committee. Turn it over to Mr. Michael.
Well, I guess I gave most of the report already, but maybe I should repeat my comment I made earlier in case somebody now is watching the streaming. We all did a finance committee event yesterday, and we had discussed the tax rates and the tax shift. And we took, had a lot of discussion, and we took consideration of the burden on the taxpayer. We always have to be fair, and we also look at the needs of the district. And some of the factors, when you come to these numbers, it's out of our control. So I hope everybody understands that. So that's all.
Any questions from Mr. Michael? Okay, facilities, I'll report out. My colleagues, Reverend Chad, were you there? No, okay, you were on vacation, but Mrs. Jordan was there. We got a report from Mr. Clapper. Well, no, we didn't. We got a report about what Mr. Clapper's currently been doing in terms of summer work. In addition to that, CS Arch brought us the finish board for the Mahar School. And because it's also going to be, in addition to pre-K Hub, the central administration offices, and going with our logo, they actually, Mr. Michael, can you grab the board that's on the table behind you and just hold it up? They went with maroon as district colors, because our logo is maroon on over. So these are the finishes that are going to be in the Mahar School. It's my understanding the administrative office section. I don't know if they're going to adhere to that, well, certainly for the flooring, but for all the walls in the pre-K classes. But that's the finish for the offices. So. Lovely. Lovely, lovely. Thank you very much. The Facilities Committee is now hearing all the updates from KSQ, DBL, and CS Arch, and we'll be reporting. The steering committee is suspended until we get approval for the phase 2 funding. But there was a piece of unfinished business which was to fix the field house. Yeah, so you passed a resolution this evening, and Jerson,
It's under the business.
it's under new business, I'm sorry. Okay, so we'll get to that.
I read the wrong direction.
Huh? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you did. That's okay. We let you.
It's okay.
Just realized we're on the agenda.
Anyway, we'll get that to them for new business. But, yes, go.
The only other thing I think we should mention is the fact that the costs are escalating.
Yes.
Higher than what the expected rate is, and that may have some consequences.
Because materials are escalating very quickly with it.
For everything we're doing.
For everything.
Wasn't that the point of asking the board, the state ed to move our timeline up so that we can?
It is, but what's happening in the world out there with commodities is not good.
No, no, but I'm asking what our parents stand.
Yeah, we're not in a good place with that, actually. We're, I don't want to report on that right now. We've got some preliminary feedback from the state. We're actually powwowing as a group with KSQ and BBL within the next few days to create a response. That's the same, yeah, but that's the idea, yeah, sure.
That's happening statewide, well, it's happening nationwide.
But even like some of our,
Yeah.
but our future projects, including ones that were just voted on in the spring, while we looked at our budgets and said, oh, we can do this much work, this much money, with prices rising as they are, and because of the time it takes between vote and actual shovel in the ground, we may be doing less than what we had originally said we would be
Or
doing.
might have to do some more in-house.
Question, relative to the field house, was that more costly than what we owed them for doing it? Are we paying more money?
No, we're not paying any more money than what we already had. Nothing, yeah, nothing over what we already had budgeted for the job.
But we'll keep you updated on progress. And Mr. Becker will show you some of the, what's happening, demolition at Mahar. I'm sure he'll keep us updated with what we've done.
You might have to have a meeting there, everybody versus
Maybe.
our goal.
Okay. Any questions about facilities? All right, so we'll bring you to now coffee conversation. We had a lot of suggestions, so many that we can't possibly do them all in 10 months unless we do multiple coffee conversations. We have, you want to go ahead with those suggestions?
I have it's quite a list, and it needs to be narrowed down because we can't possibly do these all. So far on the list though, we have the farmer's market on September 29th. We have October 22nd, Vita Real, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Church. Yeah, on Pine Street.
Hispanic.
Yeah, Saturday, December 8th for here at Sione with Dr. Paulino. Monday, March 11th at New Progressive Church. I don't know how you feel about the list that I sent, if you have any, and we're working on a date for Ulster Immigrant. Yeah. These are some possible dates that we can add. I mean, there are more that we can add too.
Okay, this list is
It's in the library.
in the library, so please, take a look and make suggestions about how we can narrow it down. Maybe we can do just 10, because this is a lot, it's a big commitment.
We can't do more than 10 out of
No.
13.
Well, I mean, the total cost of in the town of Ulster Firehouse, they're pretty much right next door. I think if you just go to either place once.
Yeah,
would be nice.
so, make suggestions to get the deal, because we would really like to set this, by the 12th, because by the 29th, we're gonna begin the calendar for coffee and conversation. And, if you noticed in the goals, it said we would put the announcement about the coffee and conversation up on the website, not just on the board page, but a reminder.
We've been doing that in the past, yeah.
people complain that they didn't know, that it was going to be that big. Okay, so can you get those to me maybe by next Wednesday?
And if you can even give me some suggestions as to ones that you don't think would work out well, because I don't know all of these. And maybe you know them better, whether or not we get a turnout.
Yeah, ones that can be consolidated.
Yeah.
Okay, like maybe downtown, maybe one of the neighborhood centers and the church could be consolidated. Would that happen? Would there be enough room?
The Hodge Center, the Kingston Library.
Yeah, maybe.
Right, and there's somebody had already said that to me, so.
So please get suggestions to me by next Wednesday. Okay, for the 29th, we already have volunteers. I think it's me, Jen.
Yes, it's up.
I have it right here
For the farm stand, I'm sorry.
These are the people who already volunteered.
Okay, so it's James Michael, Suzanne Durham, Chip Shaughnessy, or Sheriff Chacos. With 5 of us, we have to cover roughly 4.5 hours. So, we could switch teams.
It's my browser shower, that's okay.
Well, I guess you did transfer. Well,
I know, why I
don't volunteer.
I did last year.
Okay.
There are a lot of those speaking.
Okay. All right, on to old business. Is there any old business any trustee would like to raise at this point? Yes, this is George.
Last time we met, I had asked that you look at the memorandum of support for the New York State School Boards Association. And I wondered if you would like to take any action on officially supporting them, and then maybe I would construct a letter and send them again to Representative Basso, our Senate.
Okay, oh, that was in the library last week. Yes.
No, it's in the,
It's in it.
it's in. So there's a memorandum of support, there are 3 of support. One is for the salt,
State and local taxes.
right, to restore the state, the salt deduction.
Yeah.
One is for the DACA kids in education, and one is for the internet.
Thanks for
The 21st Century Internet Act.
Yes.
Which is basically broadband. So if you are in agreement with them as a group, then we could support them, and then I can write a letter to our federal representatives.
Discussion? Anybody have a feeling about that?
So I will move that we support these 3 memorandum of support for the New York State School Boards Association, and follow up with letters to our congressional representatives.
And you'll run them.
And I will,
So we can review at the next meeting.
right,
Okay.
nothing's gonna change.
All right. Okay. So legislative action. Thank you. Any other old business? All right. New business. We have the bid awards and change order resolutions under new business, and they are on the page following that. One is for the K-1 Fieldhouse additions and alterations, and that is the appointing a new contractor to actually execute it's the corrections to the work that was done by the former contractor. The change order.
That refers to the same project, so that take B20, B21 is a.
Right, to go together. Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to B20 and B21 to come together.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, hopefully, I have every confidence in Jersey, for sure. They've done wonderful work on the rest of the project, and I'd like to get started before anything explodes. It's really scary. All right, any other new business? Board member announcements? Yes, Mrs. Jordan.
I had the privilege of meeting with Congressman Faso, along with a legislative aide from New York State School Boards Association, and one other gentleman who's a board member in Butte County. And if you want to know what we talked about, that's also in the library attached, and it's all the federal talking points. And he was delighted to see you. And I tried very hard to advocate again for public schools and make them understand, especially that any money that they peel off for charter schools is money that they're robbing from our public schools. And so, that was my ending point. But he was, very cordial, and his aide in Washington, who knows the most about education, was on speakerphone then. And I've also tried to contact the person at the state, I wrote his name down, I don't have it now with me, about why our waiver was denied for the testing. And nobody seems to know what the rationale is as to why they rejected it.
First special ed and ELL.
They were both denied, but I couldn't get a reason, so I'm calling the person who put it in from the state, and hopefully maybe we can revive it again this year, because it's really important.
With regard to that, Dr. Corey is going to Washington DC on the 26th. To meet with legislators, and he maybe we could just ask him if he would take that up.
That would be great. Thank you.
Any other board member announcements?
Take the meeting long enough. Dr. Catalina doesn't have to answer questions.
He left.
He left.
Everybody drive the board goal. So no other announcements and no public left?
Exactly.
I guess nobody wants to weigh in, and no executive session needed, and no second executive session. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye.